hours since I've seen you guys, it feels like. Um, just want to thank everybody for being here first and foremost. Obviously, the season didn't go exactly the way that we would like, ravaged with injuries, and that is just a name of the game. I think it was 294 to be specific in injuries for our players. But that opportunity was given to our young players, and I thought the youth movement took full advantage. Super proud of the development, how they responded, stepping to the task, and doing it in a way that I thought represented what we want to be going forward. Um, despite the ups and downs of it, I thought there was very much a positive mindset by those young players, because many times you can get lost in that, and you can not bring your best, you can give up, you can drop the rope, and they did not ever do that. Yesterday, met with the coaching staff. Want to thank all of them for their dedication, support throughout what was really a tough year. Daily coming in, bringing energy, all those different things. Some of you made two changes. Some of you may have seen. Want to thank Depeche Mystery and Jimmy Alapag, um, for all that they brought and all that they did for the Sacramento Kings. And with that, I think I'll open it up to questions.
Doug, first and foremost, welcome back for a second season.
Thank you.
Just, I know the season did not go the way you wanted to, but with the way the young players developed, is that sort of what you think that your brand is right now? Is that development from the young guys?
Yeah, I think, looking at the last 15 games, I think we are 6-9 in those 15. And when I look at it just visually, and that's part of it, like, how does it make you feel? And I thought that the ball movement on the offensive end, the player movement, the multiple efforts, the pickup point, um, in those times we were top 10, I believe, in offensive rebounds. So the crashing was there. Um, there was a game when I believe we shot 44 threes. So those were created by paint touches. But the physicality on the defensive end, and the pickup points are one of the things that stood out to me most. Like, are there points that we must continue to improve upon? Yes, but that is more stylistically what we want to see.
Coach Christie, how do you think that you align with your standards and Scott Perry's 6 pillars? Going through the season, where you felt at times that you were not there, or one time that you knew that you were there, and this thing worked, because you never swerved from that. You were
Yeah.
consistent about that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you learn along the way. I mean, the beauty of those is when we're playing to those and we're all about those, I think that you're going to see exactly what we want. Um, Learning to coach to those all the time, that is a thing, because it has to be the standard, and it has to be, period. That's one of my areas of growth, that I just have to make sure that it is done consistently every single day. And it's a blessing to have a leader like Scott. I will tell you, he and BJ have been one of the biggest blessings for me as a young coach, learning this business and understanding. He's seen so many different things, so just the ability to have those parameters is a big blessing. Yeah.
Hey, Doug.
Hey.
You had player exit interviews on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
I just want to know, what was the overarching message to the players to the offseason?
That we must improve. We absolutely must improve. Take this time, decompress, make sure that you let the body heal and all that. But what we experience is unacceptable. Period. And however we have to do it, and in mind, how we have to do it. but it has to happen. So don't let this be any indication of what we shall experience going forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you feel like you had to, I don't know if it's adjust, adapt, maybe change at any point in the season, but at some point have a pivot point, realizing that it's not the season that you want it to be, and then how you kind of go forward with that.
Yeah.
Did that ever occur to you to have to make any sort of pivot on your end?
I think the point when we really started pivoting to the youth was probably one of the biggest points. And some of it was obviously the injuries and different things, and then some of it was like, yo, they're playing, let them play. And the blessing in that, and the beauty is that we fast forwarded their growth. Um, but it's hard to win with youth in this league because they're just unexperienced in certain aspects and areas, and you just have to let them go through the ups and downs and the bumps and bruises that happen with that. But I thought they did one hell of a job, man. I do. They came back every day with the same mindset. They wanted to learn. They were sponges. They went out there and they tried all the different things that we threw at them. They didn't back up, which is super important because once you start doing that in this league, you get a jacket that's put on you, and it's I don't even know if you can shake it, but it's really hard. Um, but they did not do that. That doesn't mean that you can go fight everybody and all. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's a level of physicality and discipline and respect that you gain when you go about it the right way, and I thought they did.
Hey, Doug, kind of piggybacking off of that question, you had stated that one of the positives of this season was the development of the youth. When you had a season like you had with the adversity, the injuries, and overall, I guess just the disappointment of all the losses, in addition to the youth, is there anything positive that you look back on this season or reflect back on and be like, that was a good moment or this was a good moment? Of course, there's a lot of good things. And then my second part of that question is, what is your message to the fans here? You played for this organization, you know the fans very well, and for them just sticking through with this team.
Well, I'll start at the end first. The message to the fans is that we love and appreciate the support that you continue to bring. I mean, coming into that building towards the end of the season, it's not going how you want, and you look up and we're in the game. It's the fourth quarter, and I'm like, whoa, this is happening right now. That is a level of respect and dedication that you don't see. And also at the same time is we will get it right. That's what we're here to do. And hell or high water, we will make it happen. As far as positive, like for me, the youth is probably the biggest one from the standpoint that when you look at stylistically what we want to do, that was as close as it gets to what you want to see. There was an energy, there was a vibe, there was a protecting the paint, there was a multiple efforts, there was a sharing of the basketball, there was a movement of bodies. There was a connectiveness that I thought permeated through whatever arena we were in, ours or the opponents, and that for me is the biggest thing. There will be tweaks and different things that go about to make sure that that takes a bigger step and a better step and more stylistically to the product that we want to put out there daily. But that was probably the biggest.
Hi, Doug. Two questions. First, I know you don't like talking about yourself, but if you could give yourself a grade for, given the cards that you were dealt with, the injuries, it being your first season, how would you kind of just assess the job that you did in year one?
It can't be too high because it wasn't where we wanted. That's just who I am. I'm not gonna say, are there some positives? Yeah, but yeah, to put something on it, I failed because we didn't get to where we want to go. That's the nature of this business. And I have to be better. It starts with me. So that's just what it is.
And secondly, what was it like coaching Russell Westbrook for a full season and kind of just we know the player that he is, but just kind of seeing how he stepped up as a leader for this specific team.
It was both of our vets, but Russell in particular. It was a blessing because I would say in many ways, like when you coach greatness like that, it's not easy. It can be difficult, but Russ was willing to share of his knowledge. He was willing to bring the young players and the team in particular together many times, dinners, different things. And that's what leadership is about, especially, and he's seen it at the highest level. He's played and been in it at the highest level. So for me to watch him and be a part of that was big time. Yeah.
Doug, you'd been a coach previously, obviously, but first year
Mhm.
running the show. What were some of the things that you came to realize was unique with being in that chair, and how did you develop and grow throughout those aspects?
The chair is, like you asked a question like that, and it's really hard to it's hard to describe. I'll be quite frank with you. Like until you sit in it, coming in, you think, okay, I need this, I need that. Those are some things, and then once you sit in it, you find out that none of that is true. You have no idea what this is until you sit in it. So, um, but I learned a lot about myself. Um, and that's probably the most important as I go back and, watch every game and break every game down and then recollect and criticize myself, which is, you know, that is a tough one because I'm hard on myself already. So when I go back and look at it, it's gonna be like, good God Almighty. But those are the things that you have to do to improve. And the chair definitely helped me see different aspects of myself that I needed to see.
And essentially your rookie year in this role, what do you feel like you mentioned there, that you did learn about yourself, and what do you look forward to next year to improving?
I would say there's a communication piece because sometimes you feel like you're doing something, but it's not about what you think; it's about how others perceive it. And I have to make sure that that piece is tight. The accountability piece is huge. Got to make sure that day in and day out, people are held to our standard and are held accountable for all of that because it falls here on this seat. Regardless, if somebody else did it, it doesn't matter. It's on me, and those are some of the things. Yeah.
Doug, when you look at the roster, what are some things that you liked about the roster, and then moving forward, maybe some key pieces that you add or change?
Well, right off the bat, point guard. This is in this league. If you don't have that position, you really don't have a chance. It's the quarterback. It's they say quarterback in football and different things, and that's a tough position. But this one is about as difficult as it gets. This is You're running a team, you're running a show, you're responsible for the guys on the court. Your quarterback in the defense, your quarterback in the offense. This guy needs a shot. That guy needs a shot. When do I need to do my thing? What does the coach want? Am I representing him the right way out here? I'm the head of the snake. There's a lot that goes into that. And then I thought one of the biggest things, and I give Scott and BJ and our scouting department all the credit, is they identified, I say three, but I'm going to say four because I'm going to add Duquan Plowden in there. They identified what our pillars are and our standard is, and they drafted that. And they hit a grand slam home run because everybody was on base. And that's difficult because you hit and miss in this league. And the one thing that we have to do here is we can't miss when it comes to that stuff. And then we have to develop our players at a really, really high level. We have to. It's a damn must because even when I played here, we had the bench mob, and that was part of what makes a team special. It's not just the starting five. That second five is probably just as important, if not more important, because they're going to keep the lead or they're going to extend the lead. And I'll be damned if they give it up. So yeah.
Doug, you talked about stylistically at the end of the season, there was much more to
Yep.
your liking. There's an identity there. How do you think that kind of meshes together once you get some of the reinforcements back? You get a lot of veterans out. Do you think that's easier to implement the things you want to do now that you showed it on tape?
Well, I'm not going to say the player, but in my meetings, the first question that one of my players asked is, "Are we going to go back to 94 feet?" Because we got away from that, and I just wanted to hug him and say, "Get the hell out the office, man! You hit it on the head right away." But yeah, it's when you look at Hunt, when you look at Keegan, those guys possess the length and athleticism and shooting and playmaking. The guy you plug that in, you're excited. Then you got Domas and you plug him in and playmaking and dribble handoffs and all these different things that he brings. Then you talk about the youth and how they develop, and you start to mix that together. Now it's going to be my job to make sure that systematically we are on point. And oddly enough, these are things I used to say when I was on TV because I played in the system. So I'd always be like, "King need the system," and then you get here, and I have to make sure that when they hit the floor, they know exactly what it is, and then it's easier to coach because I can see you're not doing what it is, and that goes on both sides of the floor. So it would be nice to plug those guys in and have all that. We didn't have it, but to your point, yeah, I could see how all of that could fit because the ability to shoot and the ability to defend and the ability to rebound are things that are absolute musts, and those guys help in those categories.
Two for you, Doug. The first one is Zach said in his exit interview that this is one of the better collections of talent in the league that he thought. Obviously the injuries, but why even before the injuries, so the team just wasn't playing up to the standard? Why do you think that collection of talent wasn't able to get it done?
It's hard to say. I would say in many all the teams I've ever been on and I've seen, just because you got talent don't mean you don't win. Talent got to fit. Talent got to be ready to be willing to sacrifice. And we can go back and look and see different areas where it obviously did not work. But there was not one game when Keegan and Domas, I don't even think they ever played together. So when you start talking about that, there's a synergy and there's a different thing that goes with practice and a lot of different things that we have to improve upon that help them to be what you're talking about. So just because you got talent doesn't mean that you're going to win. So you look at our team and you look at some of the teams in the playoffs, and some of them you can say, "Oh, that's a more talented team," and they might not win because there's a togetherness that you have to have. There's a sacrifice. You got to be committed to what we're doing, and if you're not committed to what we're doing, it's not going to work. Period. It's not, because as soon as the link gets identified that's not 100% in, you attacking that, and it's going to break. It has to be everybody all in all the time. And when we get that with talent, well, now we sitting here. Well, we not sitting here. We getting ready to go play. Yeah.
Then my second one is obviously you, the staff, all the players, obviously put in an incredible amount of work during this season. Was there like a moment for you of something you saw or some work that the team put in that paid off that you kind of smiled, and what was, I guess, your most gratifying moment of the season?
It's a good one. I'm always thinking defense. I apologize, but there was a moment, I can't remember the game, but we always talked about rotations and different things and multiple efforts, and we got two bigs on the floor, and when a big rolls, you want to see big to big. You want to see small gets rotated on a big, and a big sees it, and he goes and it's like, "Get the hell out of here! I got it!" and scram him out. And Max did that, and I just went, my face probably didn't say it, but I was like, "Damn!" okay, kid. Like it takes a while. It's a lot going on. He's trying to figure it out. And that was probably game 60, 65. But the point is, he figured it out. And that's probably one of the most gratifying things that you get as a coach.
Kind of going off of that, where do you think this rookie class stacks up to years past within the Kings? A lot of guys, especially that you saw development and growth this year, particularly the biggest one.
So the history of the Kings, where this stacks up,
Yeah.
I would probably say right at the top. I mean, with the except, you got like Jay Will, that's outstanding. Boogie was, but we drafted a kid that's 42nd, and if you did the draft again, he goes in the top 5 probably. Like, damn. Then you got a kid in Neek who, towards the end of the season, like, I was like, oh boy. DP, and then Dylan, he wasn't even drafted, and he affects winning like nobody's business. So I don't know that we've seen a draft class like this here. We've seen a lot that didn't work, and I think that's why when I mentioned Scott and BJ and that whole staff up there, you have to give them credit for, identifying, because a lot of people obviously didn't see it, but we did, and we benefit from it.
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
Just like the rookies got an extended opportunity this season, it feels like you faced much more than a coach usually does in their first year in that seat. I'm wondering if any confidence you take, or what do you take from that and apply to the next season?
Good question. As an athlete, you grow up, and to like on the outside looking in, this is like, whoa, and this is a lot, but you kind of made for it, or you're not. You keep fighting. You come with the right mentality, or that starts to break down, and you see that. Me in this position, I try to come with the right disposition, the right mindset. Clean it, rinse it, let's go again. The learning inside of that is probably the biggest gift, and that's sit back and look. And luckily, I have 2 incredible mentors and leaders that help me, because they see the game differently in Scott and BJ than a lot of people. So it's easy for me to lean on them. Sometimes they probably be like, damn, man. But I lean on them because I know that when you talk about knowledge and battles and fighting and where they come from, like that for me is an invaluable piece of growth that I just dive into. So, this job is one of the biggest hurdles that I've ever faced, but I truly enjoy it, and I think I must enjoy pain a little bit, because it's a lot of fun, man. I really have fun doing my job, and I know that what's on the other side of what we experienced is the gratification in going through what we go through. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Is
Doug.
that, appreciate you guys. Yes.
Good morning. Good to see all these bright, smiling faces in here today, and I'm gonna keep my bright, smiling face going today too. But first of all, I want to start off by thanking the entire Kings staff this season, from business operations to basketball operations. The support, commitment, hard work each and every day was exemplary, and I'm truly appreciative of that. And I'm looking forward to many more seasons together as we work towards building this sustainable winner. I also want to say a special thank you to Kings Nation, the Sacramento Kings community, the fan base, for their support throughout a challenging season. But they kept coming out, they kept cheering loud. A lot of times you didn't realize what our record was this year, because they were so enthusiastic and invested into this basketball team, and I greatly appreciate that. And as I've consistently said, this year was going to be about evaluating this roster, gaining an understanding that will help inform us as we move forward in the process of building a sustainable winner. Unfortunately, a reality or fact this year, we were really hit by significant injuries, as you all well know. A number of our core players, starting with Domas Sabonis, he was only able to play 19 games this year. Keegan Murray was only able to play 23 games. Zach LaVine was only able to play 39 games. And then after the trade deadline, when we acquired DeAndre Hunter, he played a game and a half before he suffered a very freak injury there. So not to use that as, it's not an excuse, but it's a fact. And all of you who've been around team sports for years understand the importance of being able to establish some sort of consistency in playing together. As a matter of fact, I think we had 34 different starting lineups this year, if I'm not mistaken, and that's very hard to really evaluate any kind of continuity for this group. But hey, that's the reality of it. And what it did, though, and as you all have come to know me, I'm someone who's always going to be looking at the glass half full. So a lot of positives ended up coming out of that, starting with the opportunities that were presented to our younger group. Max Reynaud, Dylan Cardwell, Neat Clifford. I really was pleased with how those young people took advantage of their opportunity. I think each and every one of them got better as the season progressed and got on, gained confidence. Do they still have a lot to learn? Absolutely. And it's reasonable for us to expect that they get better this off season, and that'll be our expectation that we have placed on them to be better as we work towards improving this basketball team. But excited for what they were able to show this year. And in watching that growth and opportunity, that was really one of the main reasons of making sure that Doug Christie came back here as head coach. I got a chance to see Doug's relentless energy, his leadership that he exhibited with these young guys, his patience, never wavered through a challenging year. And his work ethic was tremendous this year. And as a young first-time head coach, what impressed me most was his ability to learn, keep going back to the lab each and every day and working on his craft. I'm a former coach some time ago. You don't have to worry about it. I won't be coaching again. But I understand the journey and I understand what goes into that. And so looking forward to Doug continuing his growth and development along with the players. And so that as we move forward and trust in him and his ability to lead us to the next level of improvement. And with that now, we in our second season. We turn our attention to the draft. And I'm really excited about that. I'm really fortunate to have a front office group that I work with that works extremely hard, will have us more than prepared, and they all are doing it together. I always talked about diversity of thought with unity of purpose and direction. That group has lived it with me this year. I wouldn't want it any other way. We work side by side well together. And so we'll be prepared through this process. We've been watching games all through the year, but now we'll be, the Chicago Combine will be coming up. We'll be interviewing players. We'll be bringing players in for workouts. So we're in full prep mode, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's an opportunity for us to add talent to this roster as the next step to our track of improvement. So with that being said, I will open it up to all of you for questions.
Hi, Scott.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hi, Scott. Good morning.
Good morning.
So Russell Westbrook the other day said that he enjoyed his time here in Sacramento and he's welcome back. he'd like to be back. So I guess first of all, is he welcome back, and what were your kind of impressions of him as a player on this team?
Russell's always welcome with me. I love working with Russell Westbrook this year. I mean, he was phenomenal. I can't say enough. You know, obviously I talked about Doug's leadership and his ability to help the young people, but a lot of that development doesn't happen without guys like Russell um, and Debo and Doug McDermott. All of these veteran guys poured into our young people, and Russ was at the head of the class for that. Extremely competitive. I wish I had an opportunity to work with Russell earlier in my career as well, because I really like what he stands for. And you know, again, we will keep the lines of communication open, and we will see what happens and what's available to us this offseason.
And secondly, Doug was just asked what this roster needs moving forward, and he said without hesitation, point guard. Without giving away too much, how are you and your staff approaching the draft? And aside from physical, but what type of like mental qualities are you looking for in a player?
Yeah, obviously, point guard is a position of need, but you know, as you look at the draft, we're always looking to, depending upon where we draft, we're going to look to add the best player, best talent to this roster. So uh, if that happens to match up where we pick, and that best player on the board in our eyes is a point guard, we'll look that way. If it's another position, we'll do that. We're in the early stages of building, so it's important to just getting high-end talent for this roster. You talk about the mentality. You know, you've heard me talk about 6 pillars here from the very beginning. So we're looking for guys that, again, are competitive, tough, have a team orientation, professional, accountable, and disciplined. I believe, you know, toughness wins in this league. I believe a team attitude wins in this league. All those 6 pillars I talked about are extremely important, and we want guys to want to be a part of what we're building, that buy into that will live that each and every day, will practice that way, playing games that way, assimilate into the community that way. So hopefully that answers your question, what we're looking for.
Scott, over here.
Yes.
You don't need an abacus to see your financial situation is pretty dire heading into this offseason. How are you going to Houdini your way out of where you're at right now?
I don't know that it requires any Houdini, but look, there's a lot of mechanisms to working around the cap. I would just say this: from the time I started in this league 23 years ago, my philosophy is never to be a team going into a luxury tax unless we were a roster worthy of that, ready to compete for a championship. We're not there yet. So we have a number of avenues over the next 3, 4, 5 months to make sure we're in compliance with that, and also put the very best roster we can out there for next season.
Hey Scott, this season obviously didn't go according to plan for you guys. And Doug spoke about it earlier. You know, all the injuries. You just spoke about all the injuries. Do you think, like, injuries aside, this roster would have competed at a higher level, or why do you think this collection of talent just wasn't able to put it together?
Well, I think that's a very hypothetical, so it's hard to say. I wouldn't want to venture down that path. Obviously, individually, a lot of guys had strong resumes in this league. You know, Domas had been an All NBA player. You know, DeMar DeRozan, even though he's year 17, he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Russell Westbrook is going to probably be a Hall of Famer. But talent alone doesn't always dictate what happens, wins and losses. You need time to come together. And unfortunately, this group never had time to play together. So we really won't know the answer to that question.
Hey, Scott, over here.
Okay. All right, Jake.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I asked this with the lottery coming up. Are you a superstitious person?
No. Long time. No, I'm not a superstitious. I let that go a long time ago. During my coaching days, you know, I won my first game. I wore a particular tie. Then I wore the tie the next time, and then we lost 6 or 7 straight. And I said, well, superstition out the window.
So we'll let the balls fall where they may.
Let the balls fall where they may. Exactly.
When it comes to the draft, though, is this the most important draft this organization has partaken in the recent future?
Well, again, it's hard for me to comment on what preceded me, obviously, the fact that we're in the lottery, where we're positioned to be, still yet to be determined who's going to be in the draft yet. So I really can't talk in much detail until that list doesn't come out until the end of April, on the 27th, of who's actually going to get in this draft. We read a lot, and people can assume a lot who's going to be in there. But it's very important because it's the next step for us in what we're trying to build here to add real talent. Add at least at minimum a starting level player in this league. And it's no secret that while it takes a culture and environment to help create a winner, you have to have talent that functions within that culture and environment. And so it's important in that vein.
Like you just mentioned, hey Scott.
Yes.
Like you just mentioned, kind of TBD of who will end up entering the draft. But what do you make of the potential names there and the strength of this draft class specifically in the lottery?
Well, again, without being able, because I can't even comment on particular names, but if all these people enter that we've read about, then potentially I think this is a very strong draft class. A lot of good young players on the horizon. Important part for us, which is the incomplete part for us, and you've heard me talk a lot about this, and my staff hears me say this all the time. Can't start making the final determinations till you get a chance to meet a lot of these young people, because that's important. I've said it time and time again. You evaluate the talent, that's very important, but then there's the person. We can't separate them coming through the door. They're not mutually exclusive. They're coming in together. So that's going to be a big part for us once we figure out and get a chance to spend time with these young people and figure out who's going to fit with what we're trying to build. And that'll become clear as we move forward towards the draft, June 23rd.
Hey, Scott.
Hey there. Hey, dudes.
You played a lot of young guys down the stretch of this season. Still had one of the oldest rosters in the league. How important going into next year is to get younger? How do you kind of strike that balance of having some vets with you?
Mm-hmm. Well, the draft's going to help us do that a little bit too, because not only do we have the lottery pick, we also have a couple picks in the second round. So that there gets you a lot younger, and we'll, and then as we look to free agency or potential trades or things of that nature, if we can get a little bit on the younger side, that will help us. I think what the young guys showed toward the end of the season, playing with that level of energy on both sides of the floor, that's how we really want to play, with some pace, with some physicality, and really sharing the basketball. So we'll incrementally keep working towards getting a little bit younger, because again, that you always hear me talk about building a sustainable winner. So I think that's going to be important, to have enough guys that are in that quote unquote younger bucket to help kind of drive that energy on a nightly basis.
And one more for you, just Precious Achua. I think he exceeded a lot of people's expectations. What did you make of what he brought to your team, and you vision him as someone you'd love to have back here? The opportunity presented itself.
Right. Not bad for a guy who came off the couch in November, right? No, really enjoyed working with Precious this year. Got a chance to show a lot. Obviously, he played in New York, came in the year after I left, but I was very familiar with him. And I just really like how, as the season wore on, he became more comfortable. He's a player that can guard multiple positions. He can play with the necessary athleticism, energy, and force. I think that is very important in today's game. And I know he's expressed this to you guys, and I'm gonna express it as well. I know he'd like to be back here. We'd like to have him back here, so hopefully we will continue to do business together.
Hey, Scott. When you look at the curiosity of not seeing this whole roster and it's at any point this season together as one, or fully healthy, how much do you have that going forward and looking at next year's roster, realizing that this is the first week or so of the offseason plan, but is it hard to fight that temptation of the what ifs, as so many of these players had wondered as we talked to them on Monday?
I've never been a big what if person. Obviously what happened, and I'm always look forward person. So entering every off season, and you've heard me say time and time again about being prudent and opportunistic. That doesn't change, and so that's the mindset entering into this off season as we look to assemble a roster for next year that could be, better than what we were this year.
Hey, Scott.
Hey,
over here.
what's going on? How you doing?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you.
You great? Good.
Can't complain.
Okay.
Nobody
Nobody would listen anyway if you did, right?
James Hammond.
Yeah, I know James. James, everybody exactly.
So, 3 years ago today, the Kings played in their first playoff game in 17 years. And obviously, it was an electric time around this city, this organization, this franchise. You've talked about the importance of the draft, the importance of developing the youth players and whatnot. Of course, the goal is to get this team back into playoff contention and, as high as it can go. But in your eyes, you've been around a lot of basketball. You've been around teams like Detroit and whatnot, where you've been able to turn things around and whatnot. If you can pinpoint something or a number of things that kind of get back to that, that promised land of success, shall I say, what would you identify that as?
Again, I can't stress enough the importance of establishing a culture, a standard of business, a standard of how we're going to play, a consistency of how we're going to play and work every single day. You have to have that in place. And we're just in the infancy stages of that. We weren't able to really do that to any of our likings this year, starting with mine. So that's important, having that, so that as you bring players and people in, there is a system, there is a template for how we're going to be as Sacramento Kings. And so that's what we have to really, moving forward in this offseason, the next year, that when we're sitting back here after next season, everybody in this room can say, okay, this is what Sacramento Kings basketball is going to look like. I'm not talking about number of wins, but there's a particular style, there's a particular presence and approach that you're going to be able to see. And so much of his mindset, because look, you look around this league, all 30 teams, there's a certain measure of talent in every organization in this league. And a lot of times, for me, the separator, you mentioned Detroit, where I was for so many years, and then obviously in New York, what it became the mindset. There was a toughness, there was an edge that when we went out there to compete, we believed that nobody was tougher than us. Nobody was going to outcompete us. And so if you go with that mindset each and every night, you give yourself a chance to win. It doesn't guarantee it, but gives yourself a chance. And that's where we have to get to, a consistency of how we're going to play and approach. And again, that mindset of being tough together and, just unwavering in that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Good morning, Scott.
Yes.
Just curious, last draft, Max and Neek, both guys that played multiple years in college, high IQ players. I wonder how the organization looks at and or values players that do have experience, because you're looking at a starter versus a younger one and done.
No, I think what you have seen in the NBA probably at least over the past decade is that at the top end of the draft, it's been more of the younger talent, less experienced, but analysts believe and the evaluators believe have the highest upside. As you get into the areas where we drafted Neek and Maxine, there's very highly productive players in college who have more experience and have more maturity, not just in the game, but just in life. And I think that's why you do see a lot of those guys when they come in the league. It's like years ago when guys were coming into the NBA with 3 or 4 years in college, they're a little more prepared, both mentally and physically. So we take each case individually. We value both. We value the young and high upside, and that's the importance of development. But we also value, as you could see, this draft class, guys were all 4 or 5 year guys, and I think they more than represented what we want to stand for this year. And then our challenge to them and what I know they want to do is build on that.
And then last one, just curious, last season coming into camp when you inherited the roster, it was a little bit guard heavy. Now it looks like there could be a little bit of a logjam at the forward center position. Is bringing balance to the roster a big priority this offseason?
Well, you always search for balance in your roster. Again, I think you have to seize whatever opportunities in front of you. And but ultimately, when we get the final group together, when we talk about that sustainable winner, whoever mentioned over here about getting back into the playoffs one day. My whole pledge about a sustainable winner. I want to build a group that once we're able to get there, we can stay there for a while. I don't want to be a one-hit wonder or flash in the pans. That's why you hear me talk about brick by brick, steady, slow approach, and not to get too worrying about making the flashiest move. I want to build a very strong and solid foundation, and there's a number of ways to do it. We're going to exhaust every avenue that we can to do that.
Hey Scott, when you look back at your rookie draft class from this season, they were able to produce some heavy opportunities that they were given. Is this one of the better draft classes that you feel like in your time as a GM or just decision maker that you were able to get a lot of juice out of that squeeze?
I'm proud of the group. Not only what they started to accomplish as players, but just their growth, their approach. I think it's a little bit TBD though. We what they accomplished this year means nothing for next season unless they come back better and help us get better. So it's a little bit TBD that way, but they're off to a very good start. Encouraged about what they do. And I think the beauty in all three of those young guys is that they want to be better. They want to be challenged. They want to be coached hard. And I think that is a key ingredient for any player in this league to getting better and maximizing their abilities.
Actually, I have two.
Yeah.
You talk about the evaluation process. Look for things that work, things that don't work, things that could work. And I know you said this early, last year. Were you able to identify any volunteers and hostages?
Yeah, we just talked about the young guys. They for sure were volunteers. And I think for the most part in this group, all these guys tried to put the best foot forward this year. So I have no complaints about that. Did the year go the way any of us wanted it to go in terms of wins and losses? Of course not. But I don't think you can ignore the amount of time missed by such key players. I mentioned those 3 players, and you add Hunter in there after the deadline. Those are 4 of your top 6 scorers on your rosters, 6, 7 scorers, right? And so that's difficult to make up for. But in terms of their mindset and approach, their attitude, that was the one thing. Matter of fact, DeMar DeRozan made that comment to me on the way during his exit meeting, is saying through all the difficulty of some of the losses and things this year, the group never broke. They stayed together, and you could kind of see that. And again, I think it was a testament to Doug and his ability to have the same energy coming the next day to practice, regardless of what had transpired the night before.
I also know, we've been talking about the draft the last few minutes too, but and you have mentioned, of course, the time about other teams and what they're doing and the way the league is going. The OKCs and the Indiana, at least what they were, the season before. Just want to know, you feel like, this foundation with the young players that you have, that you're going in that direction to build that type of team that you want as far as competing.
Well, we're gonna build the team in our image. I mean, obviously, I have a great deal of respect for OKC. I worked with Sam Presti his first year when we were the Seattle Sonics before they moved to OKC. So I have not only a friendship there, but a respect for what he's done over the now 18 years, I think, that he's been there. Great deal of respect for what they're doing in Indiana. But both of those places you mentioned, it's taking time and patience, and that's from everybody that's involved in this project. It's an organizational patience and dedication and commitment to doing this thing the right way. Both of those places have that. We're going to have that here, and that's how we're going to continue to keep building. We're just in the very beginning stages of it. You're looking at teams that have used multiple drafts, multiple trades to get to where they're at right now. We're just in the beginning part of that.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Scott.
All right. Thank you.
Scott.
Mhm.